animations. Everything does not needs to bounce.
We jumping.
Everything does not need to jump, right?
And we are back again, this time bigger and better. Today we're having with us two amazing designers with different levels of experience. I'm sure you probably know our our senior designer here, Oluwole Nelson. And today we're having another designer here, Enioluwa. Today they'll be touching out different myths and things that can confuse you as a beginner UX designer, whether you're a entry level, junior, senior designer. You need to watch this video. So sit tight and enjoy.
What's one thing about UI UX that you thought you understood until a real project humbled you?
Okay, so starting out as a UI UX designer, I always thought that everybody had the basic understanding of UX principle. I mean, even if you are coming up with a project, you should understand the user perspective. But taking up real projects, I found out that most people don't know how to blend the basic UX principle to their users' goals. So you have to like spend a lot of time explaining how a particular function is beneficial to the user and is more presentable than the other, and how it aligns with their business goals. So
To
that's it.
this to the senior. What is the first thing you look at when evaluating a junior designer's portfolio?
The first thing I look at reviewing designer's portfolio. Okay, so that will be clarity over complexity, because for the past few years I've been reviewing designs, and basically what we do at Nesa UIS Academy. Most designs you see when you review the portfolio, you tend to realize that uh, basic things are not being accounted for, right? For example, you need to be able to tell us the rationale behind your design decisions. You can't just tell me you use this because it's a trending stuff, right? Because it's part of the trend. No, you need to be able to communicate. The ability for you to communicate the rationale behind your decisions is very, very important. I look out for when it comes to your problem solving. Do you really understand the problem you intend on solving? Because if you don't understand the problem, how do you want to, work on the solution for it? So most case study you see, most portfolio you see, is just bunch of UIs. And let me say this to you: um, a well-detailed, clean US case study with reasoning, with human reasoning, beats a fancy UI any day. That's just it for me.
Okay, to the junior. What is the most confusing or in quote, what does this even mean feedback you've gotten from the senior designer?
That would be alignment. Starting out as a designer, I was lucky enough to be mentored by a senior designer, and reviewing my designs. Then he always noticed the alignment problem I always had, and it's always fluctuating. I was like, just 1 pixel, 2 pixel, there is no difference there. But moving on, I discovered that every pixel is important. A single pixel can decide how your UI is going to look like in an interface. So having keen knowledge and looking out for alignment in your project is going to make your design stand out than other people. So
To the senior. What is the most common rookie mistake juniors keep repeating in their years?
I'm talking of the common mistake juniors make in US. That's to be uh, so most junior designers just jump right the into designing the mock-up without fully understanding the problem they are intending on solving. So there's no way there's no way you're going to tell me you you came up with this solution without fully understanding the problem. Yeah, because one thing has to do with your research. Some junior designer just keep that research part. Research is very, very important. If you don't conduct a good user research, there's no way you want to understand the users. There's no way you want to understand their intents, their constraints, their frustrations, right? So it's very, very important to to take note of those key notes, those things that makes up your UI. So your UI can be fancy, but does it really solve the user problem? So it's very important not to skip, you know, those stages. I think that's it for me.
to the junior? Describe your design process in 20 seconds. No big draft.
My design process without big grammar would be define the problem, do your research, ideate, prototype, test, and with that, we're able to clarify uh, through the feedback, you're able to clarify your designs.
So, what is the real difference between the process juniors use versus the process seniors use?
Okay, so when it comes to the process the junior use and the process the senior use, I think that's to do with research. So I think I'm just going to talk about research. Seniors, when it comes to research, they research with purpose, right? Because when most juniors, right? I'm not going to say some. Most juniors tends to like I'll keep repeating it. The research part is very important. It's like the foundation, is like the backbone of your fancy UI. So once the foundation is not solid enough, then the US will be bad, obviously. So um, research is very important. So research with purpose, right? And then when it comes to prototype, you don't just seniors don't prototype because it's part of the process. They prototype to test assumptions, to test different scenarios, to realize different steps that was skipped basically. So when it comes to that, we tend to do a better job. Thank you.
To the junior, what UI trend do you love, even though you know the seniors hate it?
Oh, UI trend that I love. I won't say it's really a trend. I will not say I don't know if most seniors hate it, but it will be a minimalistic designs for me. I will pick a minimalistic and a straightforward design over a design that is all colorful and jam-packed and gives a lot of mental stress, because having a minimalistic design helps reduce the brain stress, which is also a feature a UI UX designer needs to have, that is taking the UX the users into consideration. So sometimes a colored or a more clustered designs tend to stress the users, but a minimalistic design works every time.
To the senior, what UI trend are juniors obsessed with that you think needs to go in the dustbin?
Hmm. That's a good question. So talking of that, that would be uh, overemphasizing on designing glassmorphism trend. Yeah, so glassmorphism trend, it's a good one actually, but it doesn't apply on every part of designs. There's some design that just needs clarity. You don't need to overemphasize it. Not just only that, that would be using of shadows, using of blur, and using of unnecessary animations, right? Because most junior designers, when they design, there are things that we correct from time to time, right? So they tend to use the shadow over the stroke, and then when they use the shadow, right, you realize that their white canvas turns black, because what they just do is just click on the plus blotting that triggers the shadow, and then before you know it, they won't even manually set it up. So before you know it, you see their cars looking elevated with a very very deep background. Before you know it, you see the layers. Wait, what's this? It needs to be corrected, right? So in most cases, I even prefer when you use stroke over using a shadow, because it's very very important that if you don't have a keen eye for balancing hierarchy, you will actually mess it up. And then talking of animation, I said animation, using of unnecessary animations. Everything does not needs to bounce.
To be jumping.
Everything does not need to jump, right? So there are some interface that just needs clarity, like I said. You don't need to like convince the user. You don't need to like divert the attention to start watching something that is dance or something that is
Like
bouncing.
dancing.
Yeah, like I said. So The UI is just make it simple. Don't make it complicated. So that does it for me.
So to the junior, what is one thing you wish seniors understood about being a new designer in 2025?
Okay, so one thing I wish they understood is the world is moving faster, and now we have a lot of AI AIs that we can use as a designer compared to when they started out as a designer. That that means a designer who is consistent can actually grow at a faster pace now than when the whole idea of AI started. Because now AI has made a lot of things easier for designers compared to the past days.
Mm.
To the senior, what is one thing juniors underestimate about solving real UX problems in Nigeria?
That will be the that will be infrastructure and limitations, because when it comes to uh, that, you being a designer in Nigeria, you need things to be functioning right before you can like uh, design a product that solves before you like design a product that solves the user problem. So one thing that can limit like that can cause limitation can be uh, the type of device you use, the type of gadget you use, the type of maybe you type of person that is struggling with electricity, the type of person that that doesn't have like a balanced workspace. So these are the things that has to do with it also incorporates regarding you making decisions with your with the product you are making, because a frustrated designer can we will not be happy when making decisions on their UI, right? So these are the things that can also like cause limitations when it comes to that.
Okay, to the junior, do you think seniors overhype research? Be honest.
No, no. Research is the backbone of every UI. It's not just about having a flashy design or your design is all neat and clean. Without the proper research, you are not actually solving a real world problem. Your design can be clean, your design can be very neat, it can be aesthetically pleasing, but does not actually solve a real problem. So that's where research actually comes in. Having a taking out research to understand the user's problem is a key feature that as designers we should have, because it's basically the backbone of every UI design and every interface out there.
Okay, to the senior, do you think juniors rely too much on Figma plugins and templates?
And templates. I would say everybody use plugins, right?
Everybody
Everybody, it's
does.
a yeah, everybody use plugin. So
Their way
yes,
of
we are.
life.
I'm not going to tailor it to juniors. Even the seniors use plugin. You know, it's plugin just saves you a lot of time. It saves you a lot of stress. You just want to design an icon and you start like you just want to use an icon and then you start designing it yourself. You spend hours putting those things together. But using of plugin to, I mean, um, the design community already make things easy for us, right? Maybe you want to design, you want to like turn your light mode into a dark mode. There's a plugin you can just easily use to just change those things, and then you yourself can tweak one or two things with it. So it brings speed into designing. So I won't say it's overemphasized or it's been overhyped because everybody used it. But the only thing I'm just going to say is when it comes to using plugin, and you also need to be able to you should ensure that most of these templates, right? You can actually design them yourself. Don't just rely on templates alone. So if you go on the community to grab a template, ask yourself, is this something I can design myself? If you're to be on a if you're to be on a call, or if you're to like want to practice on your own, do you think it's something you can achieve designing single-handedly on your own, not just relying on it? Because if you actually rely too much on it, before you know it, there's some basic things, there's some basics, modals, basics cards may not even be able to design perfectly because you solely rely on templates. So relying on it and using it boosts your productivity. It brings speed to your design. But the questions you should ask yourself is, can I really design this thing myself? So I think that does it for me.
Okay, to conclude, what is one UI pattern that always works for you?
Okay. One UI pattern that always works for me is hierarchy when it comes to typography. Uh, a little thing as typography can can differentiate between a good design and a bad design. There are some there are some typographies you should not be using when it comes to mobile interface. There are some typography you should not be using when it comes to web. So being able to define and detect the type of alignment and typography you are using in your design can actually separate you from being a good designer and a bad designer. So learning typography is also a very important thing as a designer.
So you know, what is one UX anti pattern that always causes issues?
So that would be using tooltip or icons or gestures to hide essential actions that users really need to see instantly, right? Because if there's an important actions that the user needs to like interact with, and they find it very hard to see, then the US has failed because you realize drop off happening on that particular application or product, right? So important gestures should be easily seen, shouldn't be hidden. So once it's hidden and you realize that most users might not get to interact with that particular thing, because you can't assume that everybody is going to um, understand the way you actually design.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why it's very important when you're designing, don't just design for yourself. You design for the million thousands of users, the billion users that will be interacting with the product. So that's one thing I think has to do with anti patterns.
To both of you, what is one line advice you give to anyone entering UI UX in Nigeria right now?
Um, the advice I'll give anyone venturing into UI UX is to just be consistent and make sure that you design every single day. Consistency is what separates a good designer and a bad designer over time. If you are being consistent, you'll see the development and the advancement in yourself and your skills. So if you are venturing into UI UX design, make sure that your Figma app is always open.
All right. So for me, I would say design with clarity, right? Understand the basic things you need to know. So it's not something you can skip actually. No, you can't skip the process. So it's something you grow into. Give yourself room to grow, give yourself room to learn, ask questions as much as possible, right? And of course, just like my colleague said, be very consistent with it. And when it comes to learning or venturing into UI design, that is what we actually do at Next UI Academy. So we don't just teach you how to design; we teach you how to think like a user. We teach you how to design with clarity. We teach you how to design with purpose. Designing interface that really solves the problem, right? Yeah. So I think that's all it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.